Hi and welcome to another story, and today we have part 6 of The Danger Gang by Tom Fletcher, continuing from page 248, August. Dear Danny, summer holidays are well and truly underway in Freaky. The weather has been hot, the sun has been very sunny, and I have to say, I'm kind of missing school. Wait, did I actually just write that? I'm going to have to lie down for a moment. I'll carry on writing once I've confirmed that my mind hasn't been taken over by one of Mum's inventions designed to turn me into a super nerd. I'm back. And I can't find any evidence of my mind having been tampered with, so I guess I genuinely do miss school a little bit. If you tell anyone I said that, I swear I'll tell your sister about the time you used her super expensive shampoo and panicked because you thought she'd noticed, but the bottle was half empty, so you refilled it with another bottle you found in the bathroom cupboard that looked similar, but turned out to be blue hair dye. Her hair was blue all summer and she never did find out why. I know I shouldn't laugh, but like I was saying, it's hot in Freaky. There's a hosepipe ban because it hasn't rained for 3 weeks, so Eric is safely in human mode at the moment. I haven't seen Molly much since school finished, but I think that's because she went on holiday to France with her mum and dad for a few weeks, rather than she'd turned invisible. She did get back a couple of days ago, though, so I guess she could be standing next to me, reading over my shoulder, right now, and I would never know, or right next to you, for that matter. Every night I see Charlie sneak out of his back door with a bag of sweet and salt hamster transforming popcorn in his hands, and Mr. Fluffles, the giant hamster, on a lead. Yes, through our treehouse investigations we learned that it's sweet and salty popcorn that makes Mr. Fluffles change from regular furball to hamster Hulk. Sweet or salty on their own just make him do eye-watering hamster bum trumps. They go for a walk up and down our street. I know this because Mr. Fluffles leaves a trail of, well, you know what, poop, and you do not want to step in that stuff. Wow, that must be a big dog. So, my summer holiday has been pretty normal compared to all the stuff that's happened since moving to Freaky. I've had absolutely nothing to write to you about. Until yesterday. I was coming home from the shop. I went out to get an ice cream. Yes, it was a Nutter Crunch, still my favourite, when I spotted Ronnie crouched behind Eric's wall with a bucket of water balloons. Now, this wasn't a surprise. Ronnie has been camped out like this most days since the start of the summer holidays, waiting for the perfect moment to lob a balloon at Eric and turn him into a shark. That's no surprise either. No matter how many times we see Eric transforming, it never gets boring. Plus, Ronnie loves a good prank. I mean, who doesn't? Ding! That gave me an idea. A bad idea. A great idea. With Ronnie's attention focused on Eric's window, it would be so easy to sneak up on him, slip a water balloon out of his bucket, and splat it right on his head. Oh, that would be so satisfying. He would never see it coming. But you can't do that, Frankie, I thought to myself. Yes, you can, said another little voice in my head. You can't. Ronnie would bosh you on the nose. Yes, he's a tiny bit less of a pain in the bum than he used to be, but he's still Ronnie Nutbog, said the first voice, the sensible voice. But only if he caught you, the second voice had a good point. What if I did it and ran away super fast? You know that I'm a good runner, and don't even think about saying that you're faster, Danny. You beat me once, and I had a veruca that really slowed me down. Well, no prizes for guessing which voice I listened to. I am a member of the Danger Gang after all. I gulped down the last of my Nutter Crunch, tippy-toed up to the closest tree, and peered around at my target, who was still hiding behind the wall, looking at Eric's window. It was too easy. I crept over as quiet as Zack Danger on a secret super spy mission and slipped a big water balloon out of the top of Ronnie's bucket. It felt heavy in my hands, and as it glistened in the sunshine, I thought I saw a mysterious green shimmer across its surface, like it was full of magic ready to burst. I took aim and launched it at the back of Ronnie's shaved head. Splat! Direct hit. The balloon burst and released what looked like an ocean of freezing water all over his head. Ha 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 ha! In all the excitement, I nearly forgot to run away. I quickly turned and started to leg it as fast as I could, back to my hiding place behind the nearest tree. My heart was pounding so hard I could see my t-shirt jumping up and down. When I peeked around the trunk, I saw Ronnie wiping the water from his face and looking around for whoever threw the balloon. After a few seconds, he shrugged, crouched back down by his bucket and continued to wait for Eric. Ha! That got him, I thought to myself, and I was about to go home when something caught my eye. The front door of number 23 was opening just a crack. Katie peered through it, then shot outside in a flash with a great big mischievous grin on her face. I stayed hidden and watched her sneak up behind Ronnie, just as I had done. Slowly and quietly she pinched a water balloon from his bucket, took aim and splashed it right over his head. Ha! She must have seen me do it and thought it was a great idea. Katie might be small, but all that gymnastics practice means she can move really fast. She leapt back over her garden wall and ducked down flat before Ronnie could dry his eyes. "Whoever did that is dead meat," he growled. Well, I was about to go home again when I heard another splash. I turned to see what looked like Susie dive into a bush and Ronnie covered in another of his exploded balloons. Next came Charlie. Splash! Even sweet little Molly popped out for a throw. She was invisible, of course, so Ronnie had no chance of seeing her come. Splash! Then Jamelia took aim too. Splash! It was a total wipeout. Splash! Splat! Splosh! We all giggled from our hiding spots as a dripping wet Ronnie lay defeated on the ground. That's when it happened. The freakiest thing I've ever seen since moving to the town, and you know that's saying a lot. Ronnie Notbog started crying. I mean, forget sharks in the school pool and giant hamsters. This was truly bizarre. We all emerged from our hiding places and glanced at one another. I didn't know what to do. None of us did. Ronnie was the toughest kid in the whole school. None of us had ever seen him cry before. One by one, we slowly went over to him. "Sorry, mate, it was just a joke," I said, giving him a little nudge. But he carried on sobbing. "Yeah, we didn't mean it," added Katie, biting her lip. "You do stuff like that to us all the time, Ronnie. We just thought we'd give you a taste of your own medicine," said Charlie. But that just made Ronnie cry even louder. "Shh," said Jamelia, looking around. "If a grown-up hears you crying, then we're all in deep doo-doo." Aha! We all thought it at the same time. Getting us in trouble was exactly what Ronnie was trying to do. There was no way he was really crying over a little bit of water on the hottest day of the year. Looking at the soaked grass was like looking at a crime scene. The victim, Ronnie Nutbog, lay in the middle. Around him were 6 guilty assailants. Katie, Susie, Charlie, Molly, Jamelia and me. "I'm not pretending. They hurt," Ronnie wailed dramatically. But I was watching him closely and made out a tiny glimmer of a smile. The cheeky so-and-so was pretending. But the more he pretended to cry, the more the tears became real tears. You know that feeling when you pretend something so hard that it becomes real? That was what Ronnie was doing. "Keep it down. We'll all be grounded for this," I hissed. "Stop being a baby," Susie snapped. Ronnie stopped crying suddenly. "Phew! What did you call me?" he said, sniffing. "A baby," Susie huffed. "Because you are a great big baby." Ronnie just stared at her, and he didn't look too great. His freckly face had gone very pale, like he was going to be sick or something. "Ronnie, are you okay?" I asked. But instead of answering me with words, Ronnie looked me in the eyes and said, "Goo goo gaga," in the most convincing baby voice I'd ever heard. Then Katie let out a scream. We all gasped and took a hasty step back, because what happened next was truly crazy. Ronnie was shrinking. I don't mean like when we all shrank to the size of ants last month at Freaky Falls. Ronnie wasn't just getting smaller, he was getting younger too. Right in front of our eyes, Ronnie Notbog went from kid to baby in about 10 seconds flat, until all that was left of him was a wriggling little baby Ronnie in a pile of big Ronnie's clothes. Naturally, we ran away screaming. Then baby Ronnie did what all babies do. He started to cry. This wasn't like big Ronnie, pretend crying. This was actual ear-piercing baby crying. And that's something that grown-ups simply cannot ignore, no matter how much they wish they could. One by one, we all crept back and circled the screaming baby. "Charlie, pick it up," said Susie. "No way, you pick it up," he replied. "No chance. I've never held a baby before in my life," Susie snapped. "Neither have I," confessed Jamelia. "Me neither," added Katie and Molly. Then all their eyes turned to me. I was about to tell them that I hadn't held a baby before either, but they knew about Max, so there was no chance I was getting away with it. All right, I'll pick him up," I said as I bent down and carefully scooped up little baby Ronnie, being careful to support his head like Mum had drilled into me when Max was born, and wrapping him in his own T-shirt, which was now massive on him. "Now what?" I asked, looking down at the little human in my arms. "Let's just take him to the house. Ring the doorbell. Leave him on the doorstep and pretend nothing happened," said Susie. "We can't just leave him on the doorstep. His mum and dad will never believe it's him," I said. "Let's take him to the police. They'll know what to do," said Charlie. "Hang on a second." Eric turned into a shark, but he turned back into a boy again. "Molly, you turned invisible, and you reappeared eventually. Charlie, even Mr. Fluffles, shrank back to his actual usual size, and we all grew back to normal size on Flying Ant Day. Ronnie will change back too. We just have to give him time to grow up," I said. "First, I think it might be time to change his nappy," said Susie, holding her nose. He's not wearing a nappy," I said. As soon as Susie spoke, the smell of baby Ronnie's poop seemed to fill the entire street. We all gagged and heaved. "He can use one of Max's nappies. Let's get him to my house quick," I choked. We ran back to mine and sneaked in through the back door and into the kitchen, hoping Mum and Dad wouldn't notice. "What have you got there then, son?" Dad said. We're just playing a game. Mr. Frankie's dad," Katie lied, while I tried to keep baby Ronnie hidden. "Yeah, we're playing, babies," added Charlie. Dad stared at us. He must have suspected something. This was it. We'd been caught. "Off you trot then, but keep the noise down. Your brother's having his nap," he chimed with a wink, and we all rushed upstairs. We crept silently into Max's room, found his nappies, and laid baby Ronnie on the changing mat. "Go ahead," I whispered, handing the wipes to Susie. "Me? Not a chance," she hissed, shoving the wipes back into my hands. "You started this, you can finish it." I couldn't argue with that. I did throw the first balloon. "OK, here goes nothing," I said, before taking a deep breath and wiping Ronnie Nutbog's poopy bum. It was the grossest thing I've ever done. Thankfully, having a baby brother has given me some experience in the nappy-changing department, and I managed to get it done with minimal mess, and also without throwing up everywhere. Jamelia looked like she was pretty close. I threw Ronnie's poop-covered T-shirt away, dressed him in some of Max's baby clothes, and we crept back downstairs. When we arrived in the kitchen, Ronnie started to cry again. Luckily, Dad had wandered off into the living room. "Now what's wrong with him?" asked Charlie. "I think he's hungry," I replied. "Here, these are his favourite," said Susie, offering me a chocolate bar she had stuffed in her pocket. "He's a baby. He can't have that," I replied. "It's Ronnie. He loves chocolate," Molly said. But there was no way I was going to feed a Choco Toffee chew bar to a toothless, nappy-wearing baby. Instead, I grabbed one of my brother's bottles, filled it with warm milk, and started to feed baby Ronnie. "Still playing babies?" chirped Dad, wandering back into the kitchen and still completely failing to notice that we had a real baby with us. "Yeah, feeding time now," Molly said. "Oh, yes, of course. Don't forget to burp him after," Dad said, playing along and not realising he'd actually totally reminded me that we needed to do that. "Nice one, Dad. We're going to take him for a walk," I said, and we all headed out of the front door as Dad chuckled to himself. Sometimes it really does pay off having a completely clueless dad. We walked down the street towards the spot where Ronnie had become baby Ronnie, and all gathered round to take a look at him. "Well, he's actually pretty cute now that he's not covered in you-know-what. Can I hold him?" asked Molly. "Sure, you can burp him if you like," I said, and carefully handed him over. As baby Ronnie stared at us with his big blue eyes, we forgot for a moment that this was the kid that gave us mega wedgies every morning before assembly, or dished out random dead arms on the way home, even since we'd all become sort of friends with him. I had to agree with Molly that somehow this baby version of Ronnie was kind of cute. Burp! Baby Ronnie belched a deep, slightly green, gassy burp as Molly rubbed his back. "Blimey, that was a good one," I said. "Try again." Molly gave him a little pat on the back and another impressive, deep burp was released. But something else had happened too. "Does baby Ronnie look a little bigger to you?" asked Susie. We all had a closer look and agreed that baby Ronnie had grown. "Burp him some more," Jamelia said, and Molly started patting him again. He grew. He grew some more, and he wasn't just growing bigger, he was growing up. "More!" we all cried, and Molly patted the toddler's back. "Burp! More! Burp! More! Burp! More! Burp! Burp! Burp!" By this point, Molly had to lower him on the grass because he was almost as big as her, and he was nearly back to his real age. Just one more burp would do it. Molly swung her arm and gave him a really great big wallop, but instead of just burping, Ronnie did something I've seen my baby brother do 100 times. Ronnie Nutbog threw up all over us. We were covered head to toe in warm milk, fresh out of Ronnie's belly. So gross! By the time we'd wiped it out of our eyes, we were face to face with a rather confused-looking regular Ronnie. He was back! "What's going on? And why am I wearing baby clothes?" he asked, blinking at us. But just as I was about to open my mouth to try to explain, I spotted something flying through the air towards us. It was a water balloon. "Yes!" cheered Eric from his bathroom window. "Gotcha! I've been waiting to do that all week." We couldn't tell if it was water or tears in Ronnie's eyes, but none of us were sticking around to find out. Well, that's been the freakiest part of my summer so far, and if I learned anything from that day, it's never to call Ronnie Nutbog a baby. It's a pretty good idea not to call him any names, full stop, I reckon, and I've got a feeling Ronnie might have learned a lesson too. In fact, he's been almost nice to us ever since. Hardly any wedgies at all. Who'd have thought we'd be learning so much in the summer holidays? Hope you're having a great time. Frankie. P.S. Of all this summery sunshine, I thought I'd definitely spot the shadow again, but nothing yet. However, after Eric soaked Ronnie and I ran back to my house, I couldn't help but notice that there was an extra set of wet footprints on the dry pavement. September. Dear Danny, summer is well and truly over. The first day back at school was grey and rainy and just a little bit too cold, but everyone had new pencil cases, which totally made up for everything because nothing is better than a new pencil case. Susie had a flappy plastic one, Molly had one that you could see through, and Eric had a shiny metal one that was indestructible unless Ronnie Nutbog stamped on it. Technically, I didn't have a new pencil case. I still had the awesome one that Mum made for me when we first moved to Freaky. But it was still the coolest of everyone's. I got it out and showed off the secret compartments and detachable yoghurt spoon and mega bright torch, which to be honest hasn't totally been the same since the night of the storm, but still works just fine as long as you don't mind a little electric shock every now and then. Which is lucky for me because without it I'd be in a whole heap of doo-doo right now, and here's why. Once the initial pencil case excitement wore off and learning began, things quickly settled into the usual lesson vibe, but then Miss Tinky went and made this month 10 times better by dropping some awesome news. Class, she announced, some of you may already know that in a few days' time there is going to be a very special event above our town, a total solar eclipse. Everyone thought this was super awesome, but not because of the rare astronomical phenomenon that would align the sun, the moon and the earth so perfectly that the moon would cause a total blackout in the middle of the day. No, the kids thought this was awesome because, and so that we can observe the phenomenon, you will all have the afternoon off school, added Miss Tinky. That's right, we would all be getting the afternoon off school. But to my left I noticed a shaky hand being raised in the air. Yes, Jamelia, asked Miss Tinky. Jamelia looked terrified. Miss, she asked, what about the legend of the freaky Freybug? No, I had no idea what a Freybug was either. Some of the other kids in my class knew what Jamelia was talking about, but most didn't, so Miss Tinky wrote this ancient poem about it on the board. It was pretty cool already, but I've spiced it up a little to make it even better. The Legend of the Freaky Freybug, refunk and illustrated by Frankie A. Brown. A long time ago, in Freaky, far, far away, in the blistering heat of the midday sun, a crowd gathered in Freaky Square. A shadow was cast by the moon as it passed, and it fell over everyone there. They cheered and high-fived at the sky with glee at the annual eclipse celebration. But there was something in the dark, with a deep, dreadful bark, that looked like this awesome illustration. It's a lion, it's a bear, it's a monster, they cried, for this dog was no poodle or pug. As it prowled through the streets looking for something to eat, someone screamed, "It's the Freaky Freybug!" Its fur was as black as the shadow of the moon, its eyes were as bright as the sun, and the thick grey fog that surrounded the dog scared the pants off everyone. My pants, where have they gone? The moon soon cleared, and the sun returned, and thankfully no one was eaten. But not a year goes by when the shadow in the sky doesn't bring back the freaky dog demon. Each year it appears as the sun goes black, each year looking hungrier and thinner. So, find somewhere to hide, stay at home, stay inside, or you might become the Freaky Freybug's dinner. So, Freaky legend has it that the Freaky Freybug is not some kind of weird bug, like I first thought, but a giant dog, and it can only appear and hunt for food during the blackout of a solar eclipse. Apparently there used to be loads of sightings of this giant dog, but he's not been seen for years now. Pretty scary stuff, right? Well, Jamelia certainly thought it was, but then Jamelia's scared of everything. She even made a list once. Jamelia pointed scary list of scary things. The dark, scary. Clowns, super scary. Creakers, terrifying. The sound of the Hoover, petrifying. Freaky Freybug, horrifying. Despite it appearing on Jamelia's list, everyone else laughed when Miss Tinky read the poem, as though it was all just a load of tish-tosh. Jamelia shook her head. It can't be tish-tosh, she told us all. I know that the Freaky Freybug is real. How? Asked Ronnie. Because the Freaky Freybug ate a friend of my great-granddad's cousin's uncle during the total eclipse of 1892, Jamelia shrieked. Total tish-tosh, right? Everyone agreed, and so we forgot about the scary giant dog that could potentially slink out of the shadows to eat us during the eclipse, and spent the rest of the class learning about how eclipses work. Here's a little diagram to show you. I guess this is easy for us to know, now with super awesome telescopes and satellites to help figure it out, but back in ancient times, before there were computers or cars, when our parents were young, it must have been proper scary stuff. Imagine just walking along when suddenly the whole sky turns black and the sun goes out like a light. No wonder people got spooked by stories about giant dogs that lurk in the shadows. Anyway, Jamelia spent the whole lesson on edge, looking over her shoulder in case a giant black hound crept up on her. Ronnie barked like a dog, which made Jamelia fall off her chair with fright. Most of the kids in the class thought it was super hilarious. I felt pretty bad for her, but I did think she was being a bit silly, believing that old story. I mean, giant dogs, as if. Little did we all know that Jamelia would have the last laugh. When Eclipse Day came, there was such a buzz around the school. Everyone had been making these special viewing boxes so we could watch the eclipse without damaging our eyeballs. Mum wouldn't help me with mine. I asked her to, obviously. No one ever did my homework for me, Frankie. I used my own initiative, she told me as she dished out spaghetti and meatballs for dinner. Easy for her to say, she's an inventor. I'm just a kid who doesn't listen properly, so mine ended up looking like this. But it passed Miss Tinky's safety test, so I was allowed to use it, and I forgave Mum pretty quickly because of the spaghetti and meatballs. Yum! School finished early and the whole school marched along the bank of the glistening green water of Lake Freaky, all the way to the old town square to which the eclipse was there. The school band, McCreaky, were even playing, which made the whole thing feel like a giant big festival. Ronnie figured out a way of making a little extra money to spend in the tuck shop. I wish I'd thought of it first, plus those t-shirts were super cool and selling out fast. I asked Mum if I could get one, which was a big mistake because she shut down Ronnie's whole business and made him give all the money back. The good news was that Mum confiscated the leftover stock, so I've got a whole box of Eclipse Fest t-shirts now. I'm going to keep them in the box and sell them in 40 years when they're vintage, like Dad's band t-shirts that look and smell about 1,000 years old. All of a sudden, everyone started this big countdown and had their eclipse viewing devices at the ready. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2. It felt like New Year's Eve, except when we reached one, there wasn't any cheering and kissing, just silence, as everyone watched the black moon start blocking out the sun. It was super awesome seeing the moon make the middle of the day look like the middle of the night. The whole town watched as his shadow fell over us like a blanket of darkness, and I couldn't help but notice that this shadow had a slight hint of green to it. It was in this green, shadowy silence that I first heard the growl. My friends and I all looked at each other. I could tell that they'd heard the same thing. What was that? Sorry, I had beans for lunch. But it wasn't Ronnie Notbog's bum that had growled. It was something far worse, far louder, far freakier. Then a thick fog came out from nowhere, covering the whole square, except it was thicker than normal fog, more like smoke. Then we smelled it, the unmistakable whiff of dog's breath. It was hot and close. Then we felt it. Thick, matted fur brushed past us all as though we were sheep being circled by a hungry wolf. Suddenly it appeared before us in a flash of green. Its eyes were as bright as the sun. Then we saw its dark fur against the white fog. Its fur was as black as the shadow of the moon, and we knew there was only one explanation. Jamelia ripped her eclipse box from her eyes and screamed, "It's the freaky Frey bug!" Of course, from then on it was total chaos. Everyone ran around screaming in the dark and in the fog, trying not to be eaten by a giant dog. There wasn't a single thing the teachers could do about it. If I hadn't been so scared about being eaten alive, it would have been pretty awesome. Every so often I caught glimpses of the beast as people ran for their lives. I saw growling and running, barking and shoving, tail wagging and screaming. Wait, tail wagging? That didn't seem very scary. I looked again and saw a sloppy tongue flapping happily around. That wasn't very scary either. As the fog cleared a little, I finally got a proper look at this enormous creature. It was a dog, all right, but it wasn't hunting for humans. It was chasing its own tail. The laugh blurted out of my mouth. I couldn't help it. Dogs are just too funny. R.I.P. Billy. But the Frey bug heard, and its glowing green eyeballs found me. I thought I was done for. The dog bounded over to me, galloping like a huge horse across the square. It leapt into the air, its mouth wide open, ready to swallow me whole. But it didn't. It landed on top of me, pinning me down with its lion-like paws, and licked my face like an enormous happy puppy. Its tongue was like one of those massive dead fish you see behind the counter in the supermarket, and it smelled like one too. Disgusting! While I was happy it wasn't eating me alive, obviously, there was a chance it was going to slobber me to death if I didn't get this heavy mutt off me. Suddenly I heard someone's footsteps running towards us. "You leave my friend alone, you big terrifying dog of my nightmares!" screamed Jamelia, and with that she picked up a huge stick that was lying on the grass. The Frey bug stared at the stick with hungry green eyes. No dog can resist a stick, even a crazy giant dog. It's a law of nature. "Frankie, get out of there!" Jamelia screamed as the enormous creature crept towards her tempting stick. I rolled out from under its dinner plate-sized paws, just as it launched itself towards Jamelia, and she threw the stick as hard and as far as she could into the thick fog. I scrambled to my feet, wiping my slobbery face with my sleeves. Jamelia, you just saved me from the fray bug. You totally faced your fear, I said, and I've never seen someone look more proud of themselves. Well, I wasn't going to let it eat you, she said, smiling. I was about to tell her that actually it had just been licking me, and I thought it was a friendly dog, when we heard a voice, calling. We turned, and a strange-looking old man came running out of the fog towards us. He had a long, straggly grey beard, and I thought he looked a bit like a wizard. Have you seen a giant dog with yellow eyes and black fur? The old man shook his head, scratched his grey beard, and said, Oh dear, I'm in trouble now. The sun will be coming out again any minute, and we have to be moving on. Hang on. Are you the dog's owner? I sputtered. The man chuckled. Did that look like a dog with an owner to you? No, I'm more of a companion, shall we say. It won't eat anyone, will it? Jamelia asked, and the man burst out laughing again. No, that silly old thing is a firetarian, he said. A fire what? I replied. A firetarian. It only eats the burning embers of dying fire. Where do you think all this smoke came from? He explained, gesturing around. Oh, we thought this was fog, I said. You mean he's not scary? Jamelia asked. Of course not. He's a big softy. Now, where did he get to? I threw a stick for him and he ran off to fetch it, explained Jamelia, and the man shook his head with concern. I'm supposed to keep him on a lead, but the poor old thing only gets to go for walkies once a year, so I like to let him have a little runabout, he said. I've got a dog whistle for emergencies, but I must have dropped it in all the chaos. I'll never find it on the ground in the dark. That's when it hit me. My pencil case, I cried. The man looked puzzled. How's that going to help? Jamelia grinned at me. Frankie's pencil case has a whistle, I smiled. I quickly opened up my school bag and pulled out my mum-made pencil case. After a few little fiddles, I found the emergency whistle. Well, I blew the whistle and the fray bug came bounding over, puffing smoky fog from its wet nose. The old man held up his hand. I was becoming more and more convinced that he was a wizard. And the dog stopped. The man reached into his pocket and pulled out a smouldering lump of coal. Sit! Lie down! Stay! He commanded, and the fray bug obeyed. The man shot me and Jamelia a smile. You can stroke him if you like. The enormous black hound even rolled over and let Jamelia tickle his tummy. Well, he must like you, the old man said, and as the fray bug stood up again, Jamelia was covered in its thick jet-black fur. Yuck, she laughed, trying to pick it off. Oh, I'd keep some of that if I were you. It's good luck to have a ball of fray bug fur. Hard to come by too, said the wizened old man, and Jamelia stuffed a handful into her pocket. The old man grabbed hold of the fray bug's black fur and leapt onto its back, a super cool move. Thank you for all your help. What are your names? He asked. I'm Frankie Brown, and this is Jamelia Pointer, I said. Jamelia Pointer, eh? Well, what do you know? I was friends with your great-granddad's cousin's uncle. Haven't seen him since 1892, when I decided to run away and explore the streets of the Eclipse with this giant flea bag, he said. Oh, and cool pencil case, by the way, Frankie Brown. And with that, he galloped away, following the shadow of the moon. I suddenly noticed Jamelia looking a little sad. What's up? I asked. Nothing really. It's just that earlier on, when I saved you from being eaten, I thought I was being really brave. But it turns out the fray bug wasn't trying to eat you after all. Yeah, but you didn't know that. And you still came to the rescue, and everyone else ran away. That's pretty awesome if you ask me, I said, and Jamelia couldn't help the little smile that flashed across her face. The shadow of the eclipse soon passed, and when the sun returned, everyone found us standing in the middle of an empty square. Well, it was empty except for the enormous pile of fray bug poop. Obviously, as soon as we got back to Danger Gang headquarters afterwards, Jamelia and I told everyone about the fray bug and the old man and how my pencil case saved the day, and we crowded round the ball of jet black fray bug fur that Jamelia fished out of her pocket. Awesome, we all said admiringly. Only Molly was a little quiet. When I asked her what was up, she said, Does anyone else get the feeling that all these weird things happening in Freaky might mean something? The green flashes, added Charlie. Just like that weird storm, said Susie. And has anyone else seen some weird shadows lurking around without people attached to them? Asked Eric. Yes, we all said together. Well, whatever's going on, I can't imagine we'll have to deal with anything freakier than a giant fire-eating dog that lives in the shadow of an eclipse, sighed Jamelia, relaxing into the hammock, a new addition to the Danger Gang's treehouse. Everyone agreed about that, and we celebrated the peak of freakiness with a jar of sherbet flying saucers from Charlie's mum's shop. I hope you enjoyed the eclipse too. Let me know if you saw the fray bug back in Greyville. Frankie. P.S. Still no new shadow sighting. But in bed last night, I heard the strangest noise on the roof, almost like the footsteps of someone sneaking around. And that is where we will leave part 6 of The Danger Gang by Tom Fletcher. I'll be back soon with the next part of this fantastic story, and lots more stories and videos coming your way very soon. If you'd like to subscribe or hit a like, that's always appreciated. Thanks for listening, guys. Take care. Bye-bye.